She was in public relations of Toyota, marketing of Toyota, with accountability for overall Toyota brand communications and all Toyota car nameplate marketing. Shelley led the launch of new corporate brand campaign propelling Toyota's corporate reputation, ranking from 18th in 2005 to 9th in 2009. She has experienced a broad range of styles and mediums, including traditional mass brand and tactical, digital, mobile, viral, grassroots events and contests. After working in freelance capacity for 18 months, providing B2B marketing services to owner-managed businesses, Shelley has founded RAP Communications to make smart, focused marketing easy for business owners. Today we have invited Shelley in her capacity as new entrepreneur who has been a very successful corporate executive. Shelley is a member of Canadian Association of Women Executives and Entrepreneurs and an active supporter of public education. Shelley holds a Bachelor of Business Administration degree from Milford University and lives in Toronto with her husband and 3 children. Please help me welcome Shelley to share her experience.
So I've learned that I have the toughest job in the house by coming on last because everybody, the 3 great speakers that we already saw covered 90% of the content that I have in my presentation. So will it just come up next? Oh, that's okay. That's okay. Well, that's getting set up. I'll just give you my little intro since everyone's sharing their stories about how networking ended up having them here tonight. I'll share mine, which is also relevant to the conversation. So I actually am here tonight speaking because less than a month ago, was anyone at the Enterprise Toronto Small Business Forum down at the Convention Center?
Yes.
Okay, lots of people attended that. So leveraging a lot of the tips that you've already heard tonight, I did my prep before I went to that event. I researched all the organizations that were going to be there having trade show booths. I picked Thai as a booth that I wanted to become acquainted to and meet someone at because my goal for the event was to find opportunities to network with people who could introduce me to speaking opportunities because I wanted to do more speaking. And so I met Carl. Is Carl here?
Yeah.
Carl's back there. I met Carl at the booth. And Carl said, you have to speak to Lily. So I think he gave me his email address or something, and I emailed Lily, and I said, I'd like to speak with you. We had a telephone conversation where I talked about my interests and my background. And I think less than a month ago, that event was probably less than a month ago tonight. And here I am tonight, speaking. So my goal was to speak, and I used the technique at the networking event that been all the techniques that have been talked about, and here I am. So then, to carry that on a little further, how the 6 degrees of separation point and the point that everybody's connected. Meeting Lali, coming here, I've been introduced to all of the speakers before coming here tonight, and they all have networks that I'm now going to explore, and not to mention all the people that I've been talking to. So it really does work, and it's really important. So how I've structured my presentation, is around my top 10 things that I've learned, and all of these things I think at various capacities have been mentioned, so I'm going to gloss through some of them, and then the ones that I have more interesting stories I'll jump into, and please bear with me because actually, as I was watching the whole rest of the presentation, I've been reorganizing the examples that I want to share in my mind throughout, so this is a little bit of ad-libbing. So the first point, and I think this came across in a lot of the other presenters talking as well, it's a mindset, not a task. Networking is not something on your to-do list. You come to the event tonight, you are all here, you check it off, and then you go home, okay, I did networking for the week. It doesn't work like that. Networking is part of every day, your way of thinking. And I think Bobby talked about it, that every encounter is an opportunity. Everybody you meet has an opportunity to connect you with somebody. And just to give you an example on that one, I have one of the prospects in my pipeline right now for my company came to me because I was at a school council meeting. As Elite said, I support public education. My kids go to public school, and I'm the chair of my kids' school council. And I was at one of our fundraising meetings, and I was chatting with one of the other people on the school council and happened to be talking about marketing and realized that their company had a marketing provider that they weren't happy with. And as that conversation continued, he said, oh, sure, no problem. I'd be happy to set up a meeting. And then I'm going to be meeting with that individual in their company who I know is a qualified prospect from that conversation. So you can meet leads anywhere. You can meet great connections everywhere. And so that's really important. Oh no, what did I do here? Did it go? Okay, so secondly, diversify and be strategic. So pick a lot of, a variety of channels. The other thing is that when I say be strategic, I mean think about what your objectives are. We talked about goals in previous parts of the presentation, and think about who are you trying to reach and why. And make sure you go to the places where the people you're trying to reach are going to be. One of the big mistakes I think I made early on in my networking endeavors, and actually having seen all these great presentations, I wished I had been at this event about 2 years ago when I was first starting off on my own. But one of the big mistakes that I made was I went to a lot of networking events where there was a lot of people just like me. So I was meeting lots of people just like me, and I'm an entrepreneur, I'm starting a business, I have no money to spend on marketing. So the people I was meeting weren't really good prospects for me because they were all just like me. They had no money to spend on marketing and they were solopreneurs with limited revenue. And so I realized that I had to use my own marketing techniques and skills and define my target market and find opportunities to speak at places where I was going to meet people different than me. So, or not just speaking, but networking with people different from me. Thirdly, just do it. We talked about shyness and whether you're comfortable networking, and I'm also extroverted if you haven't figured that out. But even for myself, I'm an extroverted person. I love engaging with people. I'm a people person. It isn't always easy when you first get started. And I remember when I went off on my own, one of the first networking events I went to was a Women of Influence event. And I remember leaving the event so upset and really feeling so demoralized by it, because I realized when I got there, I felt like I had lost my complete corporate identity. I had my company that I had always, had this corporate title and role that I could always tell people what I did, and I was meeting people and they were saying, oh, what do you do? And I felt like I had no answer because I was just starting my company. I couldn't say I was a consultant. I had no clients. I hadn't consulted with anybody yet. And I couldn't say I was a business owner because really, other than buying my own laptop, I could hardly call what I was doing a business yet. And so it felt very uncomfortable. But I think it gets easier. You start somewhere, it grows exponentially, and it really has a snowball effect. And the more you go, the more you practice, the more you get from it. So this has been covered at length. And I think my Enterprise Toronto story and how I ended up here tonight is a good example that illustrates why this is really important. Before you go to events, research who's going to be there, set a goal for the event. Catherine talked about that. Plan for purposeful actions at the event. Don't just wander around aimlessly, but think of who do you want to talk to, what conversation do you want to have with them, what message you want to get across to them. And then afterwards, a couple points that were already touched on, but I'll just reiterate because I think it's so important. Definitely make notes. Make notes within 24 hours of the event. I picked up a few cards, and if honestly, like lovely people that I've met, I meet a lot of people every day, and if I don't make notes on these cards and the people who I've met, by tomorrow morning, I won't have the recollection to get the details into my CRM tool. So make the notes right away. Also prioritize. This wasn't, I can't remember if anybody mentioned this before, but what I always do with my stack of cards when I come home from an event is I put them in 3 piles. I have my A's, my B's, and my C's. And everybody's equally lovely and important in their own ways, but it's just a means of categorizing how quickly you take action, what kinds of actions you take. So my A's are qualified prospects. If I meet somebody, they tell me they have a marketing need, it suits the services my company provides, and I think that they would have an interest in potentially doing business with my company, they go in the A's. If I have met somebody and I have thought of a way that I can leverage them in my networking activities, that means help them by a connection I might bring to them. I met Rashawn earlier, right? And I got your name right, I remembered that. I'm going to connect Rashawn with a gentleman by the name of Callum, who's in a similar industry, and I'm going to do that tomorrow. So he would be a B because I have a good connection that I can make for you, and I'll do that. And then the C's might be people that I haven't figured out what that connection point is, and I am going to figure it out, but I just haven't figured it out yet, and so they go in C's. And I take different actions with each of those groups. The A's, I act on those immediately, act on them very, very quickly, and try to get the meeting set up as a business development goal. Another thing is that I was going to say is make this task easy for people. There was a couple of people I met tonight who didn't have business cards. And make this easy for people. Make it easy for them to be able to follow up with you, because if you don't have business cards and things like that, or your business card doesn't have enough information, or something, then it can be more of a challenge. Okay, so value questions. Bobby talked about this. I loved his exercise, and I have to give you an example of an event that I attended, and the woman who I was talking to at this event needed Bobby's exercise. I still believe in questions. Questions allow you to avoid talking yourself, so it gives you time to formulate your thinking. Questions make you sound smart, because if you ask smart questions, people will think you're smart. People like talking about themselves, and so if you ask people lots of questions, they will like you more, because they'll feel like you're really interesting, even though they're doing all the talking. And it lets you gain valuable information that you can put in your CRM tool, that you can write in your notes when you get home from the event, so that you can connect with them and find ways to help them. But this woman at this networking event that I was at, so I was using the question strategy, and I'm asking her questions, but she didn't follow Bobby's rule of asking another question back. So I was asking her a question, and she'd answer, and I asked another question, and then she'd answer, and asking another question, and then she answered, and she never asked me a single question. And so, I don't know how she felt at the end of the conversation, but personally, I felt a little bit stressed, because I was getting, it was starting to get hard to find questions to ask when there was not really a conversation happening. So, ask questions, but also make sure there's a balance there. You don't want to be the only one asking questions. Okay. No. Get it figured out by the end. Okay. Relationships, not business cards. Networking is about relationships. It's quality, not quantity. People, I think all these points have probably been mentioned. You want to really try to get to know people, take an interest in their life, ask for the things that you need, make sure that that comes up in conversation, and connect with people personally and regularly. The best book, and I don't have, everyone else had book recommendations, and they all had pictures of the book, and that's such a good idea. Change my slide. But the best book for this point is Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. It was written, honest to God, like decades ago. I don't know how long ago it was written. Before email existed, before Twitter and LinkedIn and all of these things. 70? I think it might be even 50. It was longer than, yeah, it was a long, long time. Like, it was longer, I think it was written before I was born. I'm pretty sure.
Small, and that's
Because on 50 feet.
Yeah, you're right, it was there.
Yeah, and it's been, like, there's a million editions, so if you go to the bookstore, make sure you get whatever the most current edition is, because it is updated with some social media points and that, or at least some they talk about fax machines anyway. But but this book, honestly, when I read it, every single point in this book is so relevant even for today. And I think that in your use of social networks, this book is so extraordinarily relevant because all of the things that he talks about can be applied to social networking as well in a digital world. So get that book, highly recommend it. Oh my God. Okay. Power of digital. Physical and digital. So the term social networking, when we say it means everyone thinks of LinkedIn and Twitter and all those things. But what's interesting to me about this is that all networking is inherently social. So I'm not sure why only when Twitter and LinkedIn came along we coined this phrase, but networking is inherently social. They work together. You cannot have one without the other. The gentleman who was asking earlier about connecting with people, HR people on LinkedIn that you've never met before, you don't have any previous connection, I could expect that that's going to have a lower likelihood of success because you want to use the tools in the online world to complement the relationships that you're building in the offline world and vice versa. So I'll give you a couple of examples of where that has really worked for me. And we haven't talked too much about Twitter tonight, and so I'll give 2 Twitter examples for how that's worked for me. So today, actually, before I came here, I had lunch with a woman known as, to me, @InfoSarah. I met @InfoSarah on Twitter. We had Twitter conversations for the better part of the last year. And today, I had an in-person, real-life lunch with @InfoSarah. And she's a great connection for me. Our business offerings are very complementary, and she has a lot of connections with the kinds of companies that I would like to be connected with. Also, I learned that @InfoSarah is much more interesting in real life. She was a great person when she was @InfoSarah, but now that she's Sarah Chi, and I met her, and I know her, and I had a conversation, and we talked about our children, and we talked about our lives, it is a totally different relationship. So they work together, and you can start relationships on Twitter. You really can. Second place I started relationships on Twitter, or a few relationships, and this is a really, really great technique. At the risk of appearing or looking rude, one thing that you can do at conferences, and this works better, not as much in this kind of environment, but better if it's a large keynote speaker or something like that. If you're in the audience and the keynote speaker is sharing valuable insights, if you tweet out those valuable insights throughout the course of your presentation, and you use the hashtag for the event, and you follow the hashtag for the event on Twitter, sometimes I bring my iPad with me to do this, you will see all of the conversations going on in that room, silent conversations going on in that room about what that speaker is talking about. And you will very quickly be able to find the tweeters who have common interests and common goals and be in a common place with you. And so I was doing this. It's also a good way to build Twitter followers and to meet people. Okay, I'm getting short on time. So but I ended up tweeting with these people, and one of them suggested, why don't we all go for lunch? And we met at a corner of the room, and we all went for lunch, and we actually all met each other in person. So that's how you can take on and offline work together. Again, I cannot work the mouse. Get a system, a CRM system. This was talked about by one of the other speakers. Your memory will fail you. It's very important to have a system. LinkedIn is great, but it is not a CRM system. CRM is made up of process and tool. Tool is part of it. Process is the bigger part of it. As Catherine said, your tool can be a recipe in Xbox. The key thing with that tool and making it work for you is using it with a consistent process and using it consistently. So that was already, I think, largely covered, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that slide. Down. Okay. It takes time. The activities can be really time consuming. Everything that you've been hearing about tonight might be draining you. And also it takes time for it to get some traction. And I'll just give you an example, another example. So I met this individual by the name of Mike, at a networking event that I was attending on behalf of another client well over a year ago. We exchanged business cards. After the event, I put him in LinkedIn and connected with a personal message. That was first point of contact. Second, I was at another networking event, met a different person, had a coffee with that person, and talked to him about my business. Roll forward a couple more months, that person ended up telling me I should meet Michael because he thought my services were perfect for Michael's company. So he connected us by email. I reconnected with Michael and said, and by the way, we already met. I know you, we're on LinkedIn together and we met at X conference, and I had a note about that, so I knew where I met him. So that was the next point of connection. Then, this is where the persistency pays off. Michael did nothing for several months. I was emailing him, he emailed me back a couple times, yeah, I'm interested, but I'm not ready yet. Persistence, kept on it, kept emailing him. Finally, he was ready. This is the fastest close ever, honestly. I had a 20-minute telephone conversation with him. This is after all this process. 20-minute telephone conversation. He explained to me what he needed. I gave him a proposal. 2 weeks later, he said, I like your proposal. Can you send me references? Let's meet for lunch. I put references together. We met for lunch. He never called my references. We had lunch. He emailed me back 3 days later and said, we want to hire you. When can you start, basically? So it's an example of where all the length of time that networking process took led me to a very, very fast close on a new account. So that was a great case. And then this is my last chance to get it right. Givers get. So this has been like a consistent theme through everybody's, and this is my wrapping up slide. Help people without expectation. This was a theme of everybody's talk, and I think it's so, so, so true. Catherine said thoughtful consideration around how you're doing this, which is very important. It's very important that this is personalized. I've given you a number of examples here. You can make an introduction or referrals for people. You can share their content. If I see now that Bobby tweets that he's going to be speaking somewhere, then I may retweet that he's said that, and now is promoting something that he's speaking at. So I'm going to share his content, and then he's going to be my friend. Invite them to a conference or an event. Let them know where that you see come across a conference they may be interested in. Now that I've introduced the Thai Institute, I'll be recommending people to come to this forum when I meet people where the content here would be useful. Follow them on Twitter, but after you follow them on Twitter, retweet their stuff. That's really flattering for people. People love it when you retweet them. Connect them with other people on Twitter. People I had lunch at the restaurant with at the conference where I was tweeting, met up with the guy at lunch, networked with someone else later, found out her and him were potentially very connected. Meanwhile, he moved to Australia, hooked them up on Twitter, and now they're following each other closely on Twitter because they share relevant content. Suggest a book that you think someone's going to like. This is very customized. I read a lot of books. I actually don't finish any of them. I just read like 75% of them and then I move on to the next one. But I have this roster of 100 books on every topic under the sun, and when I meet somebody who's interested, I'm always pointing them to a book. You can also, a great thing if it's a really important person you want to get with is actually buy the book, write a personal note, mail them the book, and they will get a package in the mail. Who gets packages in the mail at work? With a present. Like that's really cool. Email them an article or a blog. Support their cause or charity. Mike, that I was talking about earlier, they're doing Movember. I'm going to be going on and making a Movember donation for his company. Praise them publicly. This is the pimp my person thing that Bobby said is give people great credit when they've done a great job, and all of those things are ways that you can show your appreciation for people. So down. In summary, those are all my points. I'm not going to go over them again. And my last slide is my wrap-up slide. This is me. These are the ways that you can connect with me. I'll give my little call to action here. If you go to my Facebook page and like my Facebook page, please help me because I have like almost no likes. I have 39 likes and one of them is my mom. So, I really need to build some momentum here. And I'm trying really hard because we're putting great marketing tips and content on that Facebook page. So if you like my Facebook page, you'll get great content into your newsfeed. And follow me on Twitter, because all the same content goes on our Twitter stream. At Shelley Mayer is my personal Twitter account. I tweet all the tweets that come from there. At Rantup is my company, and I have a helper that helps me tweet that. So sometimes there's overlap. Thank you very much.